Amy, thanks so much for agreeing to chat today about the success that you've had on LinkedIn. I wanted to really walk through where you started because I know so many folks that are listening have the same frustrations that you have. So let's just start there. Can you talk a little bit about first, like introduce what you do briefly, and then share what frustration you were experiencing before we started working together?
Yeah, so first off, I am a sales development consultant. So I help businesses build out sales teams, specifically SDR teams, to try and schedule more meetings on their calendars. Um, so basically, what I was doing before, I was trying to build my business through LinkedIn. Obviously, it was working, but it wasn't. I felt that there was something off about it, which is why I first initially came to you. And I said, I know that, I'm getting some engagement on my post. Even when I showed you like my profile, you were like, oh, that's decent. But there was something about it that I wasn't connecting with the right people. And for whatever reason, my posts weren't resonating with the people that I was actually who were actually seeing it. Um, and I wasn't seeing any actual business from LinkedIn. So yeah, so that's really like the initial where I was coming from, and that's why I came to you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what metrics of success you were seeing and what you weren't? Like what did you know was working and what did you feel wasn't?
So what was working was that the posts that I was putting out, people were telling me, "Oh, I see you on LinkedIn. That's your posts look good," but and they were getting likes, but they were mostly people that just either met me or knew me or were friends with me, that were actually interacting with the posts. It wasn't people that I was trying to target to get business. So it was working in terms of, yeah, I was getting likes and I was getting impressions, but it wasn't to the actual people that I wanted business to work with.
So the traditional metrics of likes, comments, impressions were working in your favor, right? Like you were hitting the targets in terms of those metrics, but it wasn't resulting in leads, right?
Yeah, and it definitely, I want to say, like, I was getting impressions, but it wasn't, there was like a wall where I was like 25, 30 impressions maybe. And I wanted to hit, like, I think even you said it when we first met. You were like, your goal should probably be like around like 50. Like 50 likes per post is a good like number where it's like, you're doing something right. But I wasn't getting there. I wasn't like getting to the point where there was enough, like, it felt like there was something blocking, which I think we're going to go into what it was.
Yeah. Well, and so impressions is the number of people that see your content, and engagements is the number of people that interact with it. So you were probably talking just now about engagements, right?
Yeah, engagements were yeah, like the impressions haven't changed dramatically. I'd say sometimes there are posts where like they go a little bit better, they do a little bit better in impressions wise, but my impressions have not changed like super dramatically. They've been, like you said, like, yeah, it was mainly the engagements.
Okay, so let's walk into what we did together. We started with your profile, and I had to convince you a little bit of the importance of a profile. And this is a struggle that I sometimes have of saying we have to start with the profile, right? Because your profile is like your online storefront. And we can do all the work on your strategy, but if your profile isn't optimized to convert, then we're going to be wasting our time. So I convinced you that we should start with your profile with a profile optimization. What was your experience like going through the profile optimization?
Yeah, so like you said, obviously you had to convince me a little bit because I thought that my profile was kind of good. I made it myself.
And it was pretty
But
good.
it was okay. But now looking back, it's like the amount of things that we fixed, um, was great. Like, I would have never ever thought of any of them. Like almost 95% of the things that you told me to fix that you were able to notice. Just for me, even like the banner, I was like, no, the banner's it's good. I know you said, I remember you said something about the banner. I was like, what is she talking about? Like, my banner's okay. But then when we like worked on the banner, I was like, no, no, this is a good banner.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, and a lot of the changes, when I work with someone on their profile, usually I work with folks who have really good profiles to start. And that's what can be so deceiving about making the investment is you say, but my profile is good, right? Like your profile objectively was good before we got started, but there were like two pieces that I saw that were fundamentally missing. One was just technically there were some sections you hadn't filled out that go a long way in building your credibility. So one was just that more technical piece of how do we use every inch of real estate that LinkedIn offers, from the cover photo to recommendations and so on. And then the second piece is actually the positioning. And I think the positioning is the most important piece of the profile, of saying, who is Amy? How do we position the work that you do? And I remember you were struggling with how do you define your title a little bit. Can you talk about how that shifted throughout the profile optimization?
100%. Yeah, I learned a ton just about what I do, like you said, the title, but even more than that, I think just how I would explain to people what I do changed. It used to be, I think I used to say, just get more meetings with your ideal clients, which is good, but that does, I think it sounds a little bit cheap, and also it doesn't really relay the message of like how I'm doing that, what I'm doing, what I bring to the table. What I bring to the table right now is what I tell people is I help you build an SDR team from the ground up, which will result in getting more meetings and growing your business, obviously. It's not just, get more meetings. Get more meetings sounds like it might be through SEO, it might be through digital market, like it could be through anything. So I think just the way that we positioned it. Also, I know you told me to call myself a sales development consultant, which I was a little bit like, that sounds, like, what do you mean a sales development consultant? But that also is very important. When people come to my profile, they're like, oh, sales development consultant. Like, I need someone to help with sales development. Let me continue reading. And then, we obviously optimize the rest of the profile.
So the title, like what you call yourself, is so important because it signals to people really quickly what you do. And I often find that folks will sometimes go too quickly into the result that they achieve, right? The result you achieve is that you book meetings, but if we don't explain who you are and how you do it, people don't actually believe it. So I think that was a big shift that we made in the process of optimizing your profile, is just to put a label on what you do so that when prospects came to your profile, as soon as the profile was optimized, they knew exactly who you are and what you do, not just the results you achieve.
Yeah, and I think I also struggled with seeing that because of the fact that I've been doing cold calling my whole life. So in when you're cold calling someone, you don't call someone and say, hey, I'm a sales development consultant, and then go into, it's more you jump right into the pain and you jump right into the result and the thing that you bring to the table. And then you, after that, once you kind of get their interest a little bit, peaked. But it's a little bit different when you're talking to someone as opposed to when they're just visiting your profile.
Yeah, there's so many nuances of LinkedIn, and I think I've learned these nuances from reviewing hundreds of business owners' profiles, but sometimes I forget just how nuanced the positioning has to be when you're on LinkedIn, just because I now know it so intimately.
All right.
Okay, so we changed your positioning to sales development consultant, and then a few things in your business shifted. So I know the results were outstanding, right? You started to get sales calls booked basically right away, and your content shifted. And I think these two elements are quite interesting together. So can you speak more to what happened after you implemented all the changes?
So we didn't even go so much into how we could strategize changing my content and that kind of stuff. It was mostly just from doing the profile refresh with you, I was able to get a better idea of what I do and how to explain that to people and how to make it resonate with the people that I want to target. And just once we did that, it was like everything changed. Like my messaging was just different. Instead of talking about, you know I don't even remember the things I used to post about, but it definitely wasn't as powerful as what I'm posting about now, which is really, about building SDR teams. That's what I talk about. That's pretty much only what I talk about, and a little bit I try to bring in LinkedIn because LinkedIn gives you points for talking about LinkedIn. So
You know, I love talking about LinkedIn, so I totally hear you. So it's interesting because the primary benefit of the LinkedIn profile optimization is refined messaging. At least that's how I share with potential clients. And the fact that when you have an optimized profile, you tell your existing audience, right, the folks that are already coming to your profile, you tell them how to work with you and why you're credible. But you experience an additional benefit here, which is that you didn't, the benefit that you experienced was that you changed your strategy as a result of updating your profile. So because your messaging on your profile was so much more clear, you were able to actually adapt your entire content strategy without us even talking about it, which I think is so powerful. And what do you think your audience saw once that profile, once the content strategy had changed? Like why did that matter to them?
So I think it wasn't even only the fact that my audience saw something different. It was the fact that I was actually getting other people to see my content. People that I wanted to see it were now all of a sudden seeing it instead of it just being. I really think it was in the beginning. It was mostly just like my friends and my network, people that I knew who were interacting with my content. All of a sudden, it started getting out way quicker. I think there's really something else there that we're going to talk about obviously soon that really played a big part in that. But just besides for that, the content itself, changing the messaging and the way that I was giving it over to people, what I do, helped tremendously.
So let's dive into this secret trick
Yeah.
that we used. So we are in the same networking group called English Speaking Networking in Tel Aviv. And we were chatting about your LinkedIn profile, and you had shared that you felt like you were hitting this block, right? That you weren't able to pass a certain amount of engagement. So we looked at your profile and I asked how you had so many connections. And I want to say you had like 7,000 connections, right?
I think it was something around there, 7 or 8 thousand, something like that.
So a lot. You had a lot of connections. And I said, how do you have this many? And you started telling me about how you had added them randomly over the years and you were just trying to reach more. And I didn't have any data to back up my theory. But I said to you, what if we remove some of those connections? Because my theory was that if you remove some of your connections, the LinkedIn algorithm will pick up on the fact that your content is going to the right people. Because if it's going to the right people, they're going to engage more. And if they engage more, LinkedIn's algorithm says this content's good, and then it sends it to more people. So the idea was if you decrease your followers, we're going to increase the proportion of people who like and engage with your content, which will send it to more people and then get you more discovery calls, right? That was the idea. Okay, so you removed all these followers and you optimized your profile about the same time. What happened after in terms of discovery calls and who your posts were reaching?
So first off, all of a sudden, it was started to reach the right people, and then I think I booked like maybe 3 or 4 calls in like the first week. Even like the day after, there was like a call that came in, and I was like, this is so crazy. I was it was obvious that I did something right because things just like flipped. So in terms of like actual calls, like you could see like that I was actually getting to the right people. It was really working. And then in terms of the actual posts themselves, engagements, impressions, those started going up, um, also pretty much instantly, but it did take a little bit longer till I think like the algorithm started to actually see that the ratio to from the impressions to engagements was healthier. So instead of it showing my post to 1,000 people and then 10 of them liking it and 2 of them commenting, it was showing my post to 500 people and then 25 of them were liking it and then 10 of them were commenting. So it was like a lot. It was just like I said, like I guess the good word is healthy. It was healthier, um, a healthier ratio. So LinkedIn obviously likes that. That's what they're looking for. Again, like we don't know that for sure, but I think it's pretty like there's a pretty good sign that that is the reason.
We had this magic trio going on. We improved your profile, which then improved your messaging, and we decreased your number of connections. And I think these three things simultaneously are what got you those crazy results, right? A lot of discovery calls booked. I remember it got even higher over the coming weeks. You had like 6 calls booked in 2 weeks. And it was really bolstered by the fact that you already had a consistent posting schedule, right? You were already posting, and I want to say you were already DMing, direct messaging as well. So you had this robust strategy already. And so when we made these minor tweaks, it just kind of aligned everything so that you started getting the results that you had set out for.
So true. Yeah, it was because, like you said, I was doing all this. I was doing all the things. Like I'm on LinkedIn, so you get advice from people on LinkedIn that post. But in the end of the day, that's the biggest benefit of working with someone like you is because you could know what to do, but to know, excuse me, but to know exactly like how to fine tune these things and how to actually make them work is what really where the expertise shines, is because I knew I had to DM people, I knew I had to post, and I knew I had to have a good profile, but I didn't know exactly how to make those things actually resonate with people, where now all of a sudden I'm going to be getting leads from them.
And Amy, how did getting those discovery calls impact your business overall?
And my business before that was I don't know if I would call it a business. Then it became a business. Obviously, I didn't close all the calls. I think maybe even like one or two of them weren't relevant, but that's the idea. You book a bunch of calls, you close a few of them, and then that's how you make money. You're not gonna. This is gonna change your business overnight, but it definitely gave me the ability to now all of a sudden, like, LinkedIn is a channel that I rely on. This is a place where I know that I'm going to be getting leads and hopefully getting business from.
Amy, if you had any practical advice for the listener, what would it be?
Ooh, I would say to hire you. But if they're still not convinced, I think probably the most important thing would be to start off with the removing the connections. I feel like that really, that, and also before you do that, I think you have to figure out who you want to target. So if you know exactly who you want to talk to, then you could remove the people that won't be able to benefit from your content.
Definitely. So, I mean, I'll summarize the advice in terms of
Yeah,
start with your
you're better at
messaging.
that than me.
Start with your messaging, right? When you want to turn LinkedIn into a lead generating tool, what I want you to do is start by making sure that it's really clear who you're targeting. And you do that by optimizing your profile. And then once your profile is optimized, we then need to make sure your strategy is built accordingly so that you can attract the right audience. So for some of you, that might mean reducing your number of connections. For others, it might mean increasing your number of connections. It really depends on how you're coming in to the work. And so it really, those strategies are going to be custom based on where you're at, but it all starts with really good and clear messaging.
Right. That's very well said, because like I'm thinking of some, like, everyone's like me, but again, like, if you just opened up a LinkedIn profile a month ago, like, you're not going to have the same issues that I had. You're going to probably need to start connecting with people that you think you can resonate with instead of removing connection.
Yeah, and we have a shared friend, Danny Sarusi, who's a great example of this. I actually helped her get started on LinkedIn several months back, and she still has, like, I want to say 400 connections, and every
Wow.
single one of her, maybe 400 followers and like 200 connections. It's even lower. And every single one of her posts gets like 50 likes. And the reason is because she's so refined in who she's targeted of those, 200 connections and 400 followers, that her posts are going to the right people. So in many ways, she actually had the opposite situation of you, where she started with a lot. She started with nothing. She was completely new to the platform, but because she started with that messaging and then built from there, she was able to achieve the same result that you got to. You just had started with kind of a bloated network and then come down from there.
That's so interesting. That is really interesting. Yeah. Right. I've seen her profile. It's crazy. Like, how that ratio.
Yeah. It's it's it's
Wow.
uh it's the opposite of you, basically.
Right. Right.
Awesome. So
Wow.
thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope that this was helpful just to see how AB's profile optimization kind of spiraled and created all these other amazing results for his business, including several, I want to say six sales calls booked in 2 weeks, and now feeling like you have a much stronger business, and that LinkedIn's truly a lead generating tool for you that doesn't have to be a time suck. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you to you for giving me the story to share.
My pleasure.